I'm back again. I wanted to discuss things that you should not say or ask someone who is experiencing infertility. Some of these things might be controversial and depending on how close you are to the person, but usually they aren't helpful and they can be rude. People with infertility generally understand that a lot of times these things are said not to be rude or anything, just people don't know what to say, and that's why this video will be helpful, because if you know someone who's experiencing infertility, then you can try your hardest not to say these things. So let's get started. Number one, try not to spring a surprise pregnancy announcement on someone with infertility, especially if you are close with them. If you're a sister or a close friend, family member, it's just rude and considerate, I guess. And maybe not all people with infertility feel this way, but it can definitely be hard to process that information. If you wanted a child for so long and your sister comes up to you and is like, oh my gosh, we're pregnant after 1 month of trying, that feels so rude. My recommendation would be to one-on-one, face-to-face, hey, just want to let you know we're pregnant. That's all you have to do. Just don't be like, surprise, and make a big deal out of it. Let them know and then leave them alone and let them process that information on their own. Something people have asked me a lot is, why don't you just adopt? And I understand why people ask me that, but at the same time, you just don't understand what that person is going through. You don't know. They probably already thought of it themselves, and I'm sure they have many reasons why they aren't planning to adopt, or maybe they are planning to adopt in the future, but there's a lot that goes into adoption. It's expensive, it takes a long time, and I think, personally, and everyone probably has their own opinion on this, but adoption isn't for everyone. So some people really want a biological child, and that's their business. And maybe someday they will come to terms with the fact that they want to adopt, but I don't think it's a question to ask people or be trying to help them by suggesting it, because obviously we all know that's an option on the table if it's affordable, so just avoid that. Try to avoid saying things like, oh, you're still young. I've gotten that a lot, and I'm in my 30s, so it doesn't matter. Even if the person's in their early 20s or whatever, it's almost like downplaying or disregarding their feelings or making it seem like their feelings aren't valid. They might have been trying for several years. Yeah, they're still young, okay, but that doesn't mean anything. They're still struggling, they're still having a hard time with this. So being like, oh, you're still young, you have time, that's just, it's not a good thing to say. So don't say it. Enjoy being able to sleep in. That's another one that I've heard. Of course, everyone enjoys being able to sleep in, but when you don't have a child, you don't care. You would give anything to get up in the middle of the night and hold your baby and deal with all the nighttime episodes that you have to deal with. It's not something you should say, because again, it's just, you're downplaying their feelings. They should be grateful that they get to sleep in. So yeah, avoid saying stuff like that. It's just kind of inconsiderate. You're lucky you can just get up and go. It falls under the same thing. You're projecting your feelings on them, you have kids and you wish that you could just get up and go places anytime you want. The grass is always greener on the other side, right? It's just not a good thing to say. Avoid it. Trust me, you don't want kids. Trust me, we do want kids. You don't say that. It's so rude. You don't know what someone else does or doesn't want. Yeah, don't say that to anyone. To anyone. Don't constantly complain about your own kids, especially for someone with infertility. I had this friend that would just complain all the time. And not just her, but like pretty much anyone with kids. Just you hear them complain. And I get it, like you need to vent sometimes. I totally understand that. But if you know the person has infertility struggles, it comes off as you being extremely ungrateful. I could understand like every now and then just being like, oh man, I'm so wore out, you know, my kid, you know, kept me up all night. That's okay to say like once in a while, but if you're like every day like, oh my gosh, I can never get anything done, oh blah blah blah, it's annoying to hear anyone complain about something constantly as it is. So just like you wouldn't want to hear us constantly complain, being like, oh, I wish I could have kids, I wish I could have kids, you're so lucky. It's similar to that. It's like, quit complaining. You don't know how good you have it. Don't do that. Don't constantly brag about your kids or brag about how easily you can get pregnant. That's very inconsiderate. I see even people on Facebook like, oh, we're so fertile, I'm fertile myrtle. I get pregnant like right away after every birth or whatever it is. Rude. It's not real great to constantly just talk about your kids to someone with infertility. I would save that for other friends or other, you know, parents that have kids. You can talk a lot about that. And maybe that is your whole world, right? Maybe you're a stay-at-home mom and that's literally all you do is take care of your kids. But somewhere in your life you have other hobbies you like that don't involve your kids. Maybe you love to cook. Maybe you love to go on walks. Maybe you love to exercise. If you have a friend that has infertility, it can feel very taxing on them to have to hear about your children all the time. Like, oh, so-and-so's potty trained now, or so we're working on learning this. You know, a little bit of that, obviously. Like, yeah, you have children, and your friend probably does want to hear about your kids sometimes. But if that's the only thing you have to talk about, it just feels very weighty, you know, on your friend with infertility. It just feels like they have nothing to contribute, because obviously you aren't going to want our advice because we don't have kids. Usually that's the case. We have nothing to really contribute. We can't relate. We can't be like, oh yeah, I totally dealt with that and this is what we're doing, you know. It's just, it can be really hard on a friendship. So consider that and try to think of different things you can talk about with that person. Another thing that is really rude is maybe someone with infertility did give you advice or said something or another about children, and you reply with, well, what would you know? You don't have kids. That's obviously very rude, okay? Just because people with infertility don't have children doesn't mean that they can't contribute or have some valuable insights. I have 8 nieces and nephews, actually 9. I've been around children a lot, and also most women in general just have a mothering nature about them. We love to nurture, and that is not void just because we don't have children. We're going to have advice, and oftentimes also because I've had infertility, I've longed to be a mother for so long, I've done a lot of research on different parenting styles and try to figure out how I'm going to parent my own kid. And just because I haven't put it into practice doesn't mean some of the information that I've learned isn't valuable. So be open to accepting some advice from your friends with infertility if they give it, because it's not just to be thrown away in the trash because they don't have children. Something that is really rude also is to just ask someone, are you pregnant yet? Or, but if they're like, oh man, I'm really nauseated today. I feel like if you're a woman in your childbearing years, the comment is always, are you pregnant? I hate that. I can't be nauseated without you thinking I'm pregnant. I just hate it when people ask me if I'm pregnant in general anyway, because that's none of your business. Even if I was, maybe I'm not ready to tell you. Don't ask people if they're pregnant yet. It's rude for anyone. Wait for them to tell you if they're pregnant. You don't have to ask them every month. You should be glad that you're not tied down. Well, that's similar to what I touched on earlier. So, a avoid comments like that. You just don't have enough faith. This is something that can be really hurtful and damaging to someone's Christianity. It's something that is commonly said in the church or by other Christians. This could also be said to anyone experiencing an issue that's a Christian. You don't tell someone that they don't have enough faith, okay? God's will is going to be his will no matter how much faith you have. Yes, faith can move mountains, right? But only if that mountain being moved is part of God's will. So, no, don't say that. I don't care who you are. Don't tell someone the reason they aren't getting pregnant or the reason, you know, their cancer isn't being cured is because they don't have enough faith. That's so wrong. It's sinful to say something like that. Just don't do it, please. Please don't do that. It can be extremely hurtful and damaging. The last one I'm going to say is just relax, it'll happen. Or just stop trying, it'll happen. It's so easy to tell someone to just relax and don't stress about it. Well, you know what? It's not really a light switch you can just turn off, okay? And there's been many people who told me, oh, as soon as I stopped worrying about it, I got pregnant. Well, you know what? I've tried it and that didn't happen for me. I would avoid just saying that because it gets really old. That's probably the number one most common thing people have said to me, and while it's not inherently like rude or anything, it just gets really old hearing it, especially when it's not even like scientifically backed. Okay, yes, stress can cause problems with many issues in your body, but it's not like scientifically backed in the way of quit charting and quit doing the things that you know around this time you're gonna get pregnant. It just doesn't make sense to me. And also, I can't just turn a switch off and be like, okay, I'm not stressed anymore. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. It'd be great if it did. We all should try to be less stressed, right? It would help with a lot of things. Ultimately, try to avoid saying that just because we're tired of hearing it. Alright, I hope that was helpful for all you lovely people who watch this video. Those of you experiencing infertility, if there are any other comments that people have said to you that you felt was rude or shouldn't be said, leave that in the comments below, and thanks for watching my video. Bye.